Boy, this is about to get real. So then from there, we got like 2 minutes, but of course, we are live now. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in to another Midnight Motivation. I just had such a great time with our great cadre of speakers. And this has really been birthed out of kind of the season that we have been in for the past 18 months. You know, you have seen so many variations of things going on in the world. You've seen folks rioting, you've seen people upset, you've seen political upheaval, you've seen everything. And then of course, you know, put a pandemic on top of that, and everyone is just like their veins are popping out of their neck. And so in addition to our podcast, Impacting Life 24/7, we said we wanted to have a platform where we had people that would come on who were passionate about inspiring others. And we have a lineup that is closing out our Midnight Motivation series for this year. So these are the last ones you will hear until January. And they are absolutely dynamic, ladies and gentlemen. And we are blessed to have them. And so you guys know how we do it. We make an introduction and then we turn the floor over to them. Our first speaker tonight is Miss Bettina Carey. And I have had an association with Bettina now. I don't even know how long. It's just been that good. She has created a mechanism by which people can shatter their glass revenue ceiling. And she is, when you get around Bettina, number one, you feel compelled to kind of just help her because she's so compelling in what her mission is. She's not forceful. She's not salesy. She's just good at what she does. And she's helping people all around the world to get to where she is, shattering that glass ceiling. 4'9" Latina. I would like you to welcome her as our first speaker tonight, our lead-off speaker, Miss Bettina Carey. Welcome, Bettina.
Thank you so much. So, you know, I like to ask a question, and that is, ask anyone if they feel empowered in all areas of their life. If they're honest, they likely will say no. Why is that? Why is it that folks seem to have a glass ceiling sitting on top of their head? Why is it that I feel like there's a glass ceiling sitting on top of my head? Well, tonight I want to talk to you about shattering the glass ceiling, because after all, glass ceilings are meant to be shattered, not merely broken. Hi, I'm Bettina Carey, and I may be only 4'9½", as CL King just said, but what I do is big. Dream big, break through, and connect with powerful people like you watching and listening here tonight. But it hasn't always been this way. When I was in high school, I fell in love with a boy, and he became my official boyfriend. And I thought I was in love. Not long after we started dating, this man became my abuser. And as the story goes, one thing would lead to another. And after many assaults, one assault in particular would cause the death of my newborn, my very first child. Laura Jean's death would literally change my life. I'd finally muster up the courage to leave him for good a year later. His story, my story, and her story have lasted my entire life. For many years thereafter, and leaving those circumstances, I lived out my life as a victim. You might be able to relate. I'd work hard for a living and accept wages far beneath my value. I'd start a relationship with the hope and aspiration that things would turn out better this time around, and instead would end up with the same guy with a different face. As a woman, and as a woman of color, and growing up in a society who to this very day does not pay women equitably, I have overcome so much adversity. It belongs in a book, to be sure, coming later this year. Not even my parents, who loved and believed in me, set aside money for me to attend a college or university. And even while I was on the principal's honor roll throughout my high school years, my teachers never ever spoke to me about going to college. And so when I graduated from high school after attending Running Start program, earning a certificate to be a nursing assistant, I had very few opportunities in front of me. A few years after high school and after leaving my abusive husband, I managed to find my way to the University of Washington, where I received my Bachelor's of Science in Nursing 5 years later. No one, not even me, would have guessed that I would end up where I am here today. And it would take many, many years and many other crazy circumstances for me to be in the place where I live empowered and inspired each and every day, and where I'm empowering others and inspiring folks that are like you listening. To put it lightly, I shouldn't even be alive. I survived 3 murder attempts, and I'm still thriving to this very day. Along the way, I got that proverbial tap on the shoulder that said, you know, it's time for you to take others and lead them down a path. I'm like, what are you talking about, universe? I don't know what you're talking about. And so my journey began to empower others. In 2011, however, I hit a really hard roadblock. When everyone else was recovering from that 2008 real estate crash, I was just beginning to feel the impact. But by 2013, I had lost everything. And when I say everything, I mean everything. My residence, my partnership, and my money. I put everything on the lawn that could sell, and I talked to neighbors I'd never even known in my neighborhood, and they picked up everything. And what didn't sell, I took to the Goodwill. And I packed up several suitcases, and I went to live with some friends who I'm so grateful to this very day for their help. Within weeks, though, I did manage to find a new career, a regular income, and I found myself a new apartment with a stunning view of Seattle, which I still reside in here to this very day. There seems to be no keeping me down, it turns out. Even after the death of my newborn, losing my father in 2016, and several friends over the years, not really much really gets me down anymore. And I talk about glass ceilings because I've spent the better part of my life shattering block ceilings that are actually residing in my mindset and that are responsible for some of my not so great things that have happened in my life. And you might be able to relate to this, right? So one of the areas that I broke through occurred while I was on a trip to Costa Rica with a dear friend of mine. And it's a one that I'm going to share with you here tonight because it definitely deserves sharing. We had literally landed and were taken to our condo, and we went straight to the beach because that's what we were there for. And each and every day we'd go to this beach and we'd spend the entire day basking in the sunshine and floating on our backs in the water. I've got really long hair. And of course, that was always really a great feeling. One day while we were on the beach, while we were in the water, we saw something that jumped out and then went back in. I looked at my friend and she looked back at me, and I had the life ring. And so she came towards me and we found our way out to the beach. And we asked this couple, what was that? Did you see what we saw? And they said, oh yeah, that was just a snake. And I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me? I came to the beach. I came to the ocean, maybe to run into a shark. That was a long shot. I had never known about snakes in the water. So it was a surprise to say the least. That's when I came across something that I've coined and others have as well, fear. That's false evidence appearing real. And that night I went to the pool in the condo and I shared my experience with others. And then I would learn that those snakes actually were poisonous. While they told me the snakes were poisonous, they also said that the fangs were in the back of the throat and they had really, really tiny mouths. So I need not really be afraid. But the very next morning, I was so terrified that I could not actually go to the beach. My fear went from the beach incident to here, and I was very much afraid. So I stayed down at the pool and I went in the pool. I went out of the pool and I went to doze on a chaise lounge. One of the neighbors in the condo came to me and poked me and said, you may not want to fall asleep on this chair because a python has taken up residence from time to time. And so you want to be awake while you're in that chair. Oh my gosh, I was so terrified at this point. My fear went from here to here to here, and there was no calming my fear whatsoever. So after learning, not only did we have pythons, we also had an estuary near this beach. So there were also caimans that would come out at night. And so they too were, feeding my fear. So the next day, missed the beach that day. The next day, I went out and to find another beach, thinking that if we drove down to another side of the island, that I would find some security and some safety within my mind, that I could get back out on the beach, because our days were counting and we were supposed to leave soon. And while I was not able to go to that beach and go into the water, even after going to a far across the island, I did see on my walk a snake that was dying on the beach. And sure enough, tiny little mouth, fangs in the back of the throat, couldn't have really gotten into anything except maybe the web between my fingers and my toes. So I thought to myself, what is this all about? Why am I so afraid of this snake? And I noticed something, and that was that there were families with their toddlers, their infants, their children, all basking on the beach. They would go right up to the edge of the water. They would play with the water, and they had not a care about these snakes. They were poisonous, for gosh sake. Why were they not afraid of these snakes? So the very next day, I thought to myself, there's something about this experience that is here for me for a reason. False evidence appearing real. Right then and there, I realized that I had many, many occurrences in my life, including when I had to leave my home with $50 to my name to live with my friends, afraid of what might happen, and then only weeks later for everything good to come into my life. How many times have I, or maybe you listening, have let fear get a hold of us and wrap itself around us like a snake and take us down, where we don't have the courage to ask for what we're worth, to not have the courage to leave that abusive husband, that partner, that wife? How many times have how many times have I been in a situation that required courage so that I could ask for more and to receive more because I did so? And so right then and there, I realized that this would be a defining moment in my life. Only years earlier, I had to set everything aside, including my career in empowering others. And I had been like a puppy dog underneath a desk with my tail behind it. And I disappeared fear because there was no reality to that snake biting me, even between the web of my feet or my hands. In fact, that snake was no problemo. And so one of my biggest lessons is the realization that I am responsible for disappearing fear in my life. So when COVID reared its ugly head like a poisonous snake, I chose to shatter my revenue glass ceiling instead of living into the fear that I would lose everything. And I was able to take on a new membership that I have grown now called We Empower You and the WeEmpowerYourLife.com website. And I'm here to tell you that I am here to help you shatter your revenue glass ceiling. My message here tonight is that I have the capacity to ask for more. I have the capacity to disappear fear, and you have the capacity as well. I invite you to explore your inner workings of your mind so that you can see what ceilings need to be shattered in your life so that they can become your floor, and what fear that you can disappear so that you can have the life you so richly deserve, just like I have. Thank you so much tonight for having me, CL.
Awesome, 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 awesome job. Thank you so much, Bettina Carey. And she is, like I said, 4'9", full of dynamite. Bettina, if you would please tell people how they can reach you and how they can get in contact with you.
Oh, sure thing. So the best way to get a hold of me is to go to WeEmpowerYourLife.com, click on the calendar tab, and find our weekly meeting, which we have on Wednesdays, and that's 3 p.m. Pacific time, and join one of our meetings because they're complimentary. Most of our meetings are, in fact, and we are gifting all of our value of marketing, wisdom. We're helping folks to activate their voice as their moneymaker. We have so much content and so much value that we'd love for you to join us at one of our Wednesday meetings. That's
awesome.
weempoweryourlife.com.
weempoweryourlife.com. Greg, if you would put that in the chat, please. weempoweryourlife.com with Miss Bettina Carey. Thank you so much for inspiring us to get after that glass revenue ceiling, and let's shatter that thing. You know what I'm saying? Ladies and gentlemen, I told you midnight motivation just continues to move, and we don't slow down, and because we got to get done so that Dante can get to bed. Ladies, I want you to know that our next speaker, Mr. Chris D.T. Gordon, is a man that has a story that, you know, everybody, you know, you think, man, my story is pretty impressive. But when I talked to Chris D.T. Gordon earlier this year, I realized, man, this guy went through something that gave him every excuse to quit and every excuse to give up and feel sorry for himself. And strangely enough, this guy did the exact opposite. We are so delighted to be have friendship with Chris in our movement of impacting life, but we're more equally excited to have him on our platform tonight of Midnight Motivation. Would you put your hands together and welcome Mr. Chris D.T. Gordon? Welcome, Chris. Oh, let's take him off of mute. I got to get him off of mute. How do you get off of mute, Chris? Ask to unmute. Try that.
It was a shame. I just revealed all the secrets in the universe, including who killed JFK. You know, where the Roosevelt baby is. All that is,
yeah.
You know, the Lindbergh baby and Roosevelt baby hanging out.
I'm sorry.
You missed it. Sorry. So before I begin, I want to offer a care warning because I'm going to be discussing physical and mental trauma. Riddle me this. How do you use your origin story? Now, when we hear the phrase origin story, we think of superheroes. We think of Iron Man, Spider-Man, Black Panther, Captain Marvel, Wonder Woman. They all have fantastic origin stories that made them the heroes that we know them to be. Then there are villains like Darth Vader, Thanos, Dr. Doom, Lex Luthor. They also have an origin story. What sets them apart is their mindset. Where your thoughts go, your mind and body will follow. All of those heroes, they thought positive thoughts about their situation, which developed a positive mindset and thus led them to take positive action. The opposite is true for the villains. They had negative thoughts, which led them to a negative mindset and caused them to develop negative actions. Now, I could go on about superheroes, but I think a more grounded example would be necessary here. In March 18th, 2015, numbers, blah, blah, blah. I was your average, ordinary 40-year-old husband and father of three. I had a wonderful partner and wife named Becky, three fantastic kids, Josh, Seth, and Anna. We had a nice home here in New Ulm, Minnesota. Becky and I were both teachers. She taught at the public high school. I taught at an online school. Yes, there was online teaching even before the pandemic. And I was also a runner. Not only was I a runner, I was a pretty geeky runner. I would often wear my favorite running shirts while running marathons, winning races. I just loved to exude in my geekiness. And I was living my best life. Things were going pretty well up until March 18th, 2015. I was helping Becky get the kids ready for school. And our younger son, Seth, was toddling about, being pokey as 2-year-olds are wont to do. So I picked him up. I started flying him back and forth to our detached garage where the van was. Well, I veered too far to the right and scratched the back of my right hand on my garage wall. It wasn't bleeding. 'Tis but a scratch, I thought. So I put Seth in the car. I kissed them all goodbye. And as they drove off to start their day, I went back into the house, washed out my superficial wound, and started my own day. 3 days later, I wake up to find a lacrosse ball-sized bump on my right elbow. I go to urgent care and they look at it and the doctor says, well, it might be bursitis, which is an inflammation of the bursa sac in our joints, and just keep an eye on it. So I did. I kept an eye on it as the bump grew and grew and grew until my right arm was 3 times the size of my left. I was basically the Incredible Hulk in mid-transformation, except I wasn't angry and smashy, but more sicky and tiredy. As soon as Becky found a babysitter for the kids, she drove me to the emergency room and they admitted me because, hello, giant right arm. But as soon as they started taking my vitals, they found something else was wrong. I had gone septic. There was a chemical running through my bloodstream to ward off the infection, whatever it was at that time. They didn't know, but that alone can kill you. So I had poison coursing through my veins and a ginormous right arm. Not the craziest Saturday night I ever spent, but it was right up there. They kept me overnight for observation. And then in the morning, that attending doctor said something I would never forget. She said, Mr. Gordon, this is beyond us. We can do nothing more for you here. Where do you want to go? I quickly said Mayo because not only is Mayo one of the most prestigious hospitals in the world, but Bill and Dee, Becky's parents, who I also call mom and dad, lived in Rochester. So I knew that Becky, the kids, and Max the dog would have a place to stay for the 2 or 3 days this would take to resolve itself. So I was flown to Rochester, Minnesota, and at St. Mary's Hospital, which is a part of the Mayo Clinic, they officially diagnosed me with necrotizing fasciitis, also known as flesh-eating bacteria. They quickly prepped me for surgery and put me out for 5 days. During that 5-day coma, they basically flayed me like a fish, taking out the skin off of my right arm, shoulder, chest, and back. And then when they removed all the infected skin and bacteria, they found out that the infection had gone so far, they thought they would have to remove my right arm. Luckily, they found that it still had hand function, so they extracted a 15-inch by 4-inch flap of skin from my left thigh and placed it on my right hand and forearm. Since this is my thigh and my hand, I call this my thand. Copyright pending. But then that left a gaping hole in my left leg. This is kind of like the medical version of when you give a mouse a cookie. So they then elected to extract my vastus lateralis, which is my outermost quadricep muscle, and then install knobs and a shoestring contraption to close the wound over time. Well, then there is the case of the missing skin on my upper right half. They took a cheese grater on steroids, which is actually called a skin graft harvester, and ran that up and down my thighs and my back. So they had something to put on that open area up here. That all happened in 5 days. I woke up, and in the next couple of days, I started not only assessing what my physical journey was going to be now, but I also felt what I call personal bacteria set in. Negative thoughts that were going to have me question myself about what was I going to look like when I fully healed, if I fully healed. What were my physical capabilities going to be? What was my mental health going to be like? What were my relationships going to be like? How was I going to deal with this financially? All that personal bacteria started to seep in. Thankfully, it didn't have chance to fester any longer than a day or two, because my wife, Becky, during one of her daily visits, started telling me about how our friends, family, and colleagues from our various social circles were stepping up the bat for us, how they were watching over our house and shoveling and snow blowing our driveways and walkways, how they were donating toys and food and clothing to my family. Becky and the kids, and Max the dog, ended up staying at Bill and Dee's house for 2 weeks, not 2 days. And they had barely anything of their own while in Rochester. People were showing up to play with my kids, something I should have been doing. People even donated to a GoFundMe account that was started by one of Becky's friends that covered all of the expenses that were accrued by my lack of teaching, because I was out for an entire quarter of the school year. When Becky told me all of these things, that personal bacteria washed away. It was replaced by what I call the attitude of gratitude, or TAG for short. And I started practicing TAG by asking myself 3 questions. First of all, what good things do I have in my life? Now, when we ask ourselves that question, the big things come to mind: our family, our friends, our faith, our house, our jobs. In the hospital, though, I started thinking about the show Daredevil on Netflix. Like I said, I'm a huge geek, and watching Matt Murdock get in that costume and beat up bad guys was medicine that I really needed, but the doctors couldn't provide. Then I thought about the fact that the sun never shined in my eyes when I was bedridden, which really sounds weird, but when you have virtually no control over your environment, not having to ask someone for one more thing is really a godsend. And then there's the hospital pizza, which I have to tell you was fantastic. And even today, I think about things that could be seemingly overlooked so quickly, but really give me that daily dose of joy, like door hinges and water bottles and my right armpit. Funny thing about skin grafts, they don't sweat. So I have saved a lot of money on deodorant in the last 6 years because I only have to use it on one arm. Then I asked myself, not only what I appreciate, but who do I appreciate? And again, when we ask ourselves that question, the big groups come to mind: our family, our friends, our coworkers. But then I thought about the medical staff. They actually not only saved my life, but actually became friends of mine. One of them, who saw that my favorite movie of all time was Blazing Saddles, was at a garage sale. And because she recognized that movie, she went out and bought it when she saw it at the garage sale. This copy of Blazing Saddles is one of my prized possessions. And I do this now every day. I think of how I appreciate people. And what I do is I look at them, and apart from our association with each other, and I see how they affect the world in their own way. And then I'm so amazed that that person has a relationship with me. How lucky am I? And then the last question I asked was, gee, how can I give someone else a reason to be grateful? In the hospital, I couldn't do a lot. But when I was out of the hospital, when I was discharged, I started taking action, mowing lawns for my neighbors, snow blowing their driveways and their walkways, picking up garbage when I would go out for a run, and even holding the door for people. And when someone's having a really bad day, you never know how much you could affect them just by recognizing them and saying, hey, let me do a little something for you. So playing tag, practicing the attitude of gratitude has helped me so much that I am now testing for my black belt next week in Taekwondo, something I started after my hospitalization. I'm long-term training for the Boston Marathon, which I'm going to qualify for by 2030. And I've become a professional speaker. Now I'm going to ask you, how will you use your origin story? Remember, we all have things we have to face. And I hope you never contract necrotizing fasciitis, but you have your own battles to overcome by thinking of all the good things in your life, acknowledging the appreciated, and giving others a reason to be grateful. You can develop and increase your gratitude, your positivity, and your resilience. And while you may not have a perfect life, but if you practice tag and you do it consistently, diligently, and with perseverance, you can pass on perfection and go for greatness. So use tag to become the best hero you can be. CL, thank you so much for this time.
Wow, Chris, that is so powerful, Chris. I'm kind of speechless because I heard it for the second time and I listened more intently. And your story is really, really powerful because, like I said, again, ladies and gentlemen, after going through what he went through, totally changing the structure of his arm and his leg and his back and everything else, he could have just sat on the sidelines for the rest of his life and looked at his situations and became, had a pity party. But instead, he decided, I'm gonna play tag in this thing, and I'm gonna develop an attitude of gratitude. Chris, thank you so much for that amazing message. Tell people how they can contact you and how they can get up with you, sir.
Definitely, brother. Well, they can contact me by going to my website, chrisdtgordon.com. That's where I have my podcast, Scar Bearers. I have a link to that. I have a link to my YouTube channel, my Facebook, my LinkedIn, my Instagram. And I also have my online store, Chris DT Gordon's Tag and Pop Shop, where you can get shirts like this. I have hats like a beanie I wear because this does nothing to protect me from the cold. And anyone who is listening tonight, if they go to chrisdtgordon.com and check out the Tag and Pop Shop, if you buy anything there, if you use the code TAGPOP1, TAGPOP1, you get 20% off of anything you want to grab there.
Ooh, nice. Greg, I need you to go to that website, brother, and get me something out of there for 20% off. So yeah, there we go.
tag t-shirt.
Yeah, that's right. Yes,
go.
Absolutely, man. Very, very powerful. Greg says I'll be getting one of those cool shirts. So there you go. And tell us the code again, Chris.
Tag Pop 1. TAGPOP1. And if you do it in caps, it should work. It should definitely work. I've never tried it with lowercase, but I know caps works.
Okay, Tag Pop 1. Just got to fix that there, Greg. Tag Pop 1. Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris DT Gordon. You're amazing. Tequila, I hope that you have your microphone off mute because I messed everything up, muting everybody. And our next speaker tonight is Miss Tequila Cousar. From my neck of the woods, my former neck of the woods, Columbus, Ohio. She lives in Columbus, Ohio. She's actually traveling right now. I think in Indiana is where you said. And so what dedication and commitment when she responded to our inquiry, we were looking for some speakers for our 2022 series. And Tequila was so dynamic in her response and so confident. I said, you know what? We need to share that with our audience. And she is a life coach, and she's helping people discover their brand and enhance their brand. The work that she's doing is really phenomenal. And so I would like for you guys to welcome to our virtual stage for the very first time. She's not been on my show or anything else. We have just met a few weeks ago, but we were so impressed by her response that we wanted to give her an opportunity to share her message with us. Tequila Cousar, welcome to Impact. Welcome to Midnight Motivation.
Thank you. Let me ask you this question. If you try something 100 times and fail, would you keep trying? If you try something maybe 150 times, would you keep trying, even though you failed? When I was 19, I was told that I would never have kids. And for a young woman whose ambition was to follow the American dream, go to college, get married, buy the house, have the kid, right? That's the American dream. Well, my American dream was shattered when I was 19, and the doctor told me I could never have kids. That broke me. And my mom was there to witness it. The question of why me? What should we do next? So my mom, she collected our things and she said, I am going to call someone else to get their opinion. We got an opinion and she said, maybe there's a possibility. But when you have that maybe as a possibility, what will you do? You will keep trying. Even though there are times where you think that, man, I just might miss this one. So, hey, I was like, this is the time. This is when I'm going to actually have my baby. This lady said that I could have kids. Well, got married after college and hey, let's have a baby because we got the house. The house was beautiful. Now it was time to have the baby. It was time for us to live our American dream. We were excited. We were there and it's like, oh, okay. Let me take a test. Negative. Okay, no problem. That's okay. It's nothing, right? Doing it again and again and again, and it was negative. There was so much behind that negative test that no one saw. There was the mental abuse that I had on myself where I felt like I was half of a woman because I could not bear a child. As a woman, our dream when we're little girls, we have the doll babies, we play with them and we dream of having our baby, right? But when you have that dream shattered over and over and over by a negative test, what do you do? What do you do? So, my husband, was, very persistent saying, hey, stay positive. My family, I surrounded myself with people who love me and they're like, stay positive. But how can you stay positive when you see that there are teenagers having babies? When you do the right thing, but you keep getting the wrong results, how can you stay positive? My youngest sister had babies. Why me? Was my question. So I spiraled down into what I didn't know was depression at the time. And it kicked my butt, literally. There were so many dark moments. And, I questioned whether, I was supposed to be here. And you may think, and you're listening like, all over a kid, all over a baby. When you are a person who's done everything right in life and you feel like you've done everything by the books, and this is the one thing that you have no control of, what do? It causes so much mental toil because you're thinking, I should be in control of this. After getting more than 100 negative tests and trying for over 7 years, what did I start doing? I start denouncing God. Who is he? Who is that? That is not mine. That's yours. I gave my husband permission to walk away from my life. You can leave me because I'm only half of a woman. But society defines a woman as a person or individual who is here to produce life, to give life. So for me to feel that way, I was actually validating that. Hey, I was half of a woman. What was the turning point? What is your turning point in life when you feel like you've been underneath dirt, underneath society's blueprint of what we're supposed to live by? When I was 6 years old, I can definitely remember that my mom would always take me to the library, and she would just leave me there for hours, right? We lived across the street, so it was no big deal. And back in that time, it felt that the world was like safe, so leaving me there was great. I would stay there all day. She would find me and I was surrounded by books. She saw it's something in me that I did not see. She saw that my love of books was the thing that fueled me. So revisiting that moment, I revisited what I loved. I went back into, let me read more books. Let me just soar inside of these fantasies and focus on not the situation, but what the next could be for me. So the more I poured into who I was as an individual, as a person, in a time that I felt dark, I put light within myself. I noticed a change. I was no longer focused on having a baby. It was not my primary thing. I was focused on birthing my visions. What was it inside of me that I could actually birth? What is it that's inside of you that you can birth? So I noticed I was starting to lose weight. I was working out more. I was surrounding myself with people who were bringing up my positivity and my mindset. I wasn't self-inflicting myself with all of these untrue statements of who I was, but I was now injecting myself with love, with positivity, with encouragement, with light. 2 years later, I became pregnant. That changed my world. That changed who I was. But that also changed who the world was, because now I saw the world in a different light. I saw that now I could live my dreams. I saw that what's next for me. So I quit my full-time job as a dental hygienist and became a full-time mom. And I showed up and I start telling the story of how I overcame infertility. Every year, 400,000 women suffer from infertility. And the majority of those women do not become pregnant in their first shot. What I start going out doing is I start teaching a one-shot method. The one-shot method was identifying your objections. What keeps you from feeling like you're more than enough? What keeps you feeling as if you can't get to that next level in your life? What is stopping you? And most times it's here, it's in our mindset. But what is the narrative that you keep telling yourself? What is the story that you keep lying to yourself about? Our stories are fantasies. We can keep telling that fantasy over and over and keep living in that fantasy, or we can tell ourselves a new story. If we tell ourselves a new story, then we're able to execute. We're able to execute in that plan, in that thing that we want, that thing that we desire. We're able to walk into it. But we have to remember that when we take the one-shot method, or when we use this one-shot method, it's not only going to help you, but it's going to help other people, because now you're going to start injecting who you are in other people. And who you are, your personality, it matters. Showing up every single day in who you are, it matters. And people want that. They need that. And you have to be bold when you show up. So if you took 100 shots, 150 shots, 150 negative tests is what I received through the years. You could stop, but if you keep going, you'll get that one shot. You'll get that one shot, that one pregnancy test that will change your world. But you have to own that shot. So you have one shot at living a completely different life. Own your shot.
Amen. Own your shot, boy. That's powerful. And, you know, Tequila, one thing that I really appreciate about you, you know, being vulnerable and sharing your story, which was very, very personal. You said that there was 100 attempts at getting pregnant. Was it 100 or over 100? How many was it?
Over 100, like 150 attempts, pregnancy tests.
Wow.
Mhm.
I mean, and you know, I know that during that time, like you said in your message, that there was a lot of things going on in your mind, like, you know, you were half a woman, and so, but you didn't give up, and thank God for what's your child's name?
Her name's Jamia. We call her Jam. She's 10 now.
She's 10. Praise God, and thankful for you. Call her Jam.
Jams.
All right, Jam. Well, Jam's going to be an awesome young woman, and because her mother did not give up. Tequila, tell us tell folks how they can get up with you and how they can contact you.
Yes, you can go to tequilacousar.com. I also have a freebie for you. I have 31 thought-provoking statements that you can, and questions you can ask yourself in order to awaken your personal brand.
Awesome. Awaken your personal brand. So we got a freebie. Just go to give your website one more time.
tequilacousar.com.
Okay, man, we're going to go to tequilacousar.com and listen to all of our speakers. And for those of you tuning in at Midnight Motivation, we're going to have a closing thought by each speaker when we finish out. But thank you so much, Tequila, for giving us a freebie. Thank you, Chris, for connecting us with the 20% off. And thank you, Bettina, for giving us an opportunity to come to your Wednesday motivational sessions and let people understand more about shattering their glass ceiling. Our closeout speaker, our closeout speaker is someone who has been my friend since 1997, 1998. And we went our separate ways for the last 20 years. And we reconnected over the last couple years. And it was almost as if we just picked up where we left off in 1998. We had such a connection back then because we were doing something we're both very passionate about. We were working at a severe behavior student school, and we were kind of putting them through boot camp and every other kind of crazy thing we could think of. And me and this man had such a connection because we saw on boots on the ground what it really means to make an impact in somebody else's life. And so I had to pull a lot of strings to get him to come and close this meeting out. When I go back to Raleigh, I'm going to definitely have to buy him a steak, but he's my friend, a joy to be around, and a tremendous motivator. Would you please welcome to our virtual stage, Mr. Dante Holt. Welcome, Dante.
Man, absolutely. First, I'd like to say, I think you set me up. You got all these dragon slayer. You got a lady who's been fighting pythons and, flesh-eating bacterias. So, I mean, you just, I feel like, there was a slot vacant and you were just like, let me put a body in there. I need to put a warm body in this great, amongst these great speakers tonight, man. I truly enjoyed listening to each and every one of them, and just awesome stories. And I am better from hearing a lot of this tonight. and I'm still awake. So y'all did really, really well to hold my attention span. But I won't prolong us, any longer to try to get us out of here real quickly. What's funny to me is listening to everyone tonight. Everyone had a story, and I kid you not, if I show you my notes, the word story has been out throughout my notes all week. Well, ever since CL hit me up, and just to give you a little bit about myself, I was my day job, so to speak, sort of ties into everything that I'm about to sort of sum everything up, if I may. I know y'all sizing me up right now. Everybody's like, I know where's you gonna tie this in, close this out. I feel you, Tequila. I feel you. But nevertheless, part of what I do for the government is has to do with anti-terrorism and things of that nature. So over the course of the years, I've been fortunate to take some amazing classes, courses. One of my favorite ones that I'll speak on tonight is the one that I was able to go out to New Mexico Tech for a little while, and two of the courses that I took were incident response to terrorist bombing, and then the other was post response to terrorist bombings. And man, when I tell you, we had some of the best instructors that Department of Homeland could ever come up with through this training and through these courses. And the example I like to use tonight is the one that was the post response, post being after one of these incidents or a bombing takes place. And Chris, you'll probably be interested in this, because one of the case studies that we studied was that which was the Boston Marathon. I don't know if y'all remember that, not too long ago. With a terrible, terrible tragedy, man. Lives were lost on that day. It was just a mess. It was a mess. But nevertheless, that was one of our case studies. And we went into depth into that. And so we talked about from start to finish. And one of the most fascinating things about that case study that I learned during that course of time was that after everything is, after all the cleanup is done, the investigators, the tape is put up, and everything's coring off, there is a certain group of investigators or people who go inside that area, and they literally find the IED. They find it and they put it back together, the pieces. In most cases, if it's a pipe bomb, I've literally seen them take it, and because we go out there, we blow stuff up, and a couple of days they got it to show you again what it was. And in this case, it was a pressure cooker. It was a pressure cooker during the Boston Marathon. And I never forget, they had the FBI footage on the screen where they showed us that they had literally found this pressure cooker and put it back together. So I'm blown away by this, because I'm like, if you know anything about explosions, you've seen them on television. When it blows, everything blows up into tiny pieces. But they find these pieces and they put them back together. I know y'all looking like, why is he talking about bombs and things blowing up in pieces? But if I would, I'd like to tie that into where we are today as a people, where we are as a country, a culture, a community. We talked about the pandemic and all the things that followed throughout the last 18 months or so. So when I look at that, I tie this into this lesson that I learned there, is that America and this country and we as a people, we have imploded, and we are in pieces. When you look at society today, you look at our community, we are in pieces. I'm 46 years of age, and I don't mind telling my age, but 46 years of age, and this is the most division I've seen during my lifetime. Now, I know there's history of things that happened before I was born and all that stuff, but in my lifetime, I've never seen us in the state that we are as a country, as a people. So when I look at this and I'm listening to you guys and y'all are telling you stories, and I look at it where we are today with these pieces and how divided we are. It's to the point where the authenticity of people is removed. Individuality is frowned upon, so to speak. We've become carbon copies of what society says we should be. Nobody likes the skin that they're in anymore. Nobody likes how they look. Everybody's shaped the same. Everybody looks the same. Everybody the same complexion. So when we look at this, what I see is that when we're divided, we lose our story. We've lost the story, the narrative, so to speak, that was given to us. And when you look at stories, I look at it from the standpoint of, Chris was talking about superheroes earlier. The thing that I like about heroes, and I think everybody loves about the hero, is the story. You look at Michael Jordan. I just watched The Last Dance. The best part of that legend, or him being a ball player, is his story. So I feel that where we are as a people, as a culture, we have to re-identify and gather that story. We got to put those pieces back together so that we can tell the story that is meant to be told. For instance, for us, I know for me, the history of my ancestors, my forefathers, the stories that I've heard about them is how I know that certain things can happen. You know what I mean? When I look at, those who marched in those days, Dr. King, Malcolm X, Medgar Evers, and all these great men, Kennedy, when you look at the story, we had something, a roadmap there that led us to where we are today as leaders. So if we don't figure out how to put these pieces back together as a people, then our kids won't have a story. Our grandkids won't have a story or a roadmap to get to the next level, to where it is they need to be in life. If we don't have the CL Kings, the Tequilas, the Bettinas and Chris stories, and they're not heard throughout this world, throughout this nation, then our kids won't have an identity. They'll still be carbon copies. They'll be afraid to be authentic or individuals. They will feel like they will have to fall in line with what's in place and not their chosen paths. So I commend everybody who's not afraid to share their story. And I've heard some awesome stories tonight, some amazing stories tonight. And I think where we are as a people, we have to continue to press and not lose focus on those things. I think we're getting very blurred with what society say we should look like, or what we should sound like, what it should be like. And if we continue on and we'll allow them to separate these pieces, if we don't put these pieces back together, we will never be able to tell the true story of who we are as a people. And our kids will be lost. I look at, from the years when I was growing up, the role models, and I'm big on, CL will tell you, I'm very big on men being in position, men being in place. And a lot of what we're lacking right now is the absence of that male figure, the male role models. And a lot of that has to do with those pieces that are broken within the men in our community. There's some pieces there that are broken. And we're looking at, just a plug. We're looking at rolling over into some of that stuff later on, beginning of the year, actually, where we're bringing the man full circle. We want to deal with some of those issues that I believe that once men become whole, those pieces are mended, that we'll have good husbands, we'll have good fathers, we'll have good role models. I think a lot of times we put the cart before the horse and we're like, I want a good husband, or we want good fathers. But if men aren't whole in themselves, then we'll never have those things. So I'm encouraging everybody, man, to continue to tell your story. It is so important that we don't lose that. We don't lose the authenticity of who we are as people, and that our legacy, that our legacies go forth and lead a roadmap for our children and the next generation. It's so important. I thank each and every last one of you, Chris, Tequila, Bettina. You guys have amazing stories. And I think they need to be heard throughout the world. And I think these pieces, like you're doing right now, CL, these pieces have to come together in order to make us a better people in a better place. So yeah, that's all I got for you.
Well, thank you, Dante. You are so right, brother. It's like when you gave that analogy, my ears perked up about the explosive device, because me being a former Marine, but I'm not nearly an expert like you are. But you look at it, you can see that, you can picture that in your mind's eye, the scattering of those pieces, and they lose their authenticity, man. And so you're right. The call that part of the reason why we do this, Dante, brother, is to bring people together. A night at midnight, you got to be up at 5 a.m. and you still sacrifice to come here, Dante, because you believe in what you're preaching. You believe in what you're teaching. You live what you're talking about, brother. And so I really, really thank you for inspiring us to come back together. You're right, man. I feel over the last 18 months so disconnected, so many hot button topics that came out that just stretched us further apart. And I'm just like, you know what? I can't bring people back from the grave. I'm not a doctor, so I can't cure this pandemic. But what I can do is I can control how my voice, and I can tell my story, and I can bring people together. So Dante, you said it, you sealed the deal, brother. We're going to continue to do that. And when you do that men's thing, I'm hoping that I can get an invite, Dante Holt. You know what I mean?
You're going to get more than an invite. It's payback time.
Yes, sir.
Yes. I'm going to have you speak at 1 a.m.
So Dante, how can people find you? I know you got a lot of stuff going on in the Triangle area. How can people get up with you? What's the best way?
You can go to IG, Big 5 Entertainment. A lot of my stuff is filtered through there. Lavi, trylavi.com. Also, right now, we just launched Ticket Sling. Ticket Sling is another venture we got now. If you want to sell your tickets, we're handling that now for your events. What else? I think that's pretty much it, man.
Okay, sweet.
Ticket Sling, Big 5 Entertainment. Yeah.
All right. Well, that's how you're gonna get up with my man Dante Holt, and he's positioned himself lower on the screen because he's really so hulkish that he didn't want to scare everybody off with them big 22-inch guns that he got on the side there.
This is as big as it gets. The screen. That's it.
So real quick, let's go around the room and have a closing thought from each one of our speakers who have done a dynamic job tonight. I'm wide awake. I was dead tired before we logged on because this is our 6th event in 5 days, but you guys woke me up and inspired me. You woke up something inside of me. Bettina, let's hear some closing thoughts from you. Oh, we got to get you off mute, Bettina. Let me get you there.
You only get in life what you have courage to ask for. Ask for more.
You only get out of life what you have the courage to ask for. Ask for more. And that's right. You know what I've said, Bettina? This pie is big enough for all of us to get a slice. I just want my slice. You know, I don't want Greg's slice because Greg gonna put chicken and waffles on his slice. I just want my slice. You know what I'm saying? That's right. Ask for it. Chris DT Gordon, what's your thoughts?
Pass on perfection and go for greatness.
Pass on perfection and go for greatness. Do you mind if I start my week out with that quote on my platforms, Chris?
It's all yours, brother.
Pass on perfection and go for greatness. Man, as sometimes people don't even move because they're waiting on perfection, Chris. Very, very
That's right.
powerful. Very powerful. Tequila, closing thought?
You have one shot at living a completely different life. Shoot your shot.
Yes, you're a living testimony. Jam is a living testimony about that, right, Tequila?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Dante, closing thought, brother.
Hey, don't be afraid to tell your story. Tell your story. Tell your story, man. It is not just for you. Someone needs to hear your story. Yeah.
That's exactly right. Thank you, Dante Holt, the man, the myth, and the legend. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps it up. Look at us, man. We went into extra innings tonight. We gave you 4 extra minutes. Now everybody, right. Now, Chris, you're right. Everybody can go to sleep now. But here's what'll happen. Every midnight motivation, when we close out, I go get in the bed and my eyes are wide open because you're motivated. Your synapses are firing. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning in. Thank you for all that will listen later on. Take these nuggets and do us one other favor. Connect with our speakers and support them. And man, I got a stack of books in my studio from people I've had on our show. And people think, well, I just have people on the show or have people in these events so that I can look important. No, it helps me. All of y'all enriched me. And so I thank you for enriching our audience. God bless you. Thank you for tuning in to the last Midnight Motivation. Unless we decide to do one at Christmas, we thank you for really making this one an awesome one. God bless you guys. Have a great night.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thanks, you too. Really appreciate it. Good night,
Bye.
everybody.
Good night.